Jill here, and just wanted to jump on here because it's Thursday and it is 5 o'clock. So I thought I would jump on and say hello and talk to you a little bit today about, we're going to talk about mindset a little bit. Have a little presentation for you, so I'm going to actually share my screen. And hi, how are you? Thanks for joining. I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to talk a little bit about mindset, because I actually think it's probably one of the things that's overlooked the most when you're starting out your business. I know that I personally overlooked it a lot, and I wish I had known more when I first got started. So I want to make sure that I'm sharing this with you because it's such a big part of business, and I think it's important. So like always, if you're watching it live, go ahead and drop a hashtag live in there so that I know that you're here. If you're watching this on replay, then drop a hashtag replay. And if you have any questions at any time, just drop it in the comments and I will come back and check the comments to make sure that I answer any questions that you have. So let's just get started. Let me share my screen with you. So mindset when you're actually working on your business is something that is going to either make or break your business. It can really actually get in your way if you're not ready for it. When you're getting things going, mindset is what makes you stop trying. So it's really important to actually take some time, especially in the beginning, to make sure that you have everything kind of going in the right direction, that you're prepared for whatever's going to come up, and you kind of know kind of the process of what's going to happen, and so that you can be prepared for it and get ready to deal with it when it happens, and so you don't quit. It's actually what gets you through the hard parts, and it actually is what keeps you kind of grounded in being you, because you'll be ready for all that stuff that's going to happen before it happens, and you're going to be one step ahead of everybody else. Because like for me personally, I didn't know that it was going to happen, and there was many times throughout my journey that I was like, okay, I'm just not doing this anymore. But I was lucky enough that I had somebody that was really big onto mindset, and she actually talked me through a lot of that. And so having somebody there that you can talk to is really important too. But let's kind of get into mindset. A lot of people don't know what it is and haven't really taken a look at it, and don't really even know what it means when somebody says mindset. So let's get going. So how does an entrepreneur think? An entrepreneur actually thinks a lot differently than an employee. So part of that, because I also came from an employee standpoint, you need to kind of change your thinking. It's changing it from a growth to from a fixed to a growth mindset. That's a really big difference, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Is being decisive, having confidence, accountability, resilience, and health is an important part of mind. And we're going to talk about each one of these a little bit in depth, and talk about why each one of these is important, because if you don't have all of these, you can get tripped up really easily, and you end up getting tripped up on like one little piece instead of looking at it from like a bigger picture and saying, okay, this is really not that big of a deal, and I'm going to continue on. So let's talk about first what a growth versus a fixed mindset is. So a growth mindset, an entrepreneur actually thinks of everything as being a skill. So it's not necessarily that you can't do it. It's that, that's just something I don't know how to do yet, and I am going to figure it out. And the one thing that happens when you're an employee is that you get kind of like into like this role, and you're like, oh, that's not my job, so I'm not going to do it. Well, as an entrepreneur, you have to do it, because especially when you're starting out a business, you're the only one that's here. So if you don't do it, nobody else is going to get that done. So if you start like changing your mindset and saying everything is a skill, and I'm not going to be good at it to begin with, but I'm going to get better. And you can actually watch an entrepreneur develop their skills. So like if you go back to even my stuff from the very beginning, how different my stuff is now versus then, you can see that it was a skill. I wasn't very comfortable with it. There's still some things that I'm not very comfortable with, but I still do them. So I can't get comfortable with them without doing them. So it's a skill. And if you think of even like something like this on live, if you're thinking like there's no way I could do that. Well, I was not very comfortable the first time I did it. I still get a little nervous now. It's not something that I am very confident in, as far as I know that I can do it, but I'm not sure that I have like the dynamic skills to actually keep everybody like, you know, kind of like engaged in the content and stuff. And so, but it's a skill, so I'm learning how to do it. And if you go back and look at my first live, it's so different than this live. And the difference in the quality of what I'm actually presenting is getting better, because I'm getting better at it, because it's a skill. And it's a skill that I can learn how to do, and I am learning how to do it. So just remember that everybody starts not knowing how to do something. It's just like creating your content, whether you're doing it on insert some platform here. It's just a skill. Everybody starts doing it for the first time in the beginning, and everybody starts with at nothing. So look at it, and whether you're like talking about accounting or talking about, I mean, all these skills that go into a business when you're an entrepreneur, you need to do them all. So everything's a skill. Just keep that in mind. It's much different than an employee mindset, because as an employee, you think, oh, it's not my job. And that mindset is very limiting. So you end up like limiting what you think you can do instead of treating it as a skill. So being decisive and confidence. So this was one thing that was really hard for me. You know, you hear the fake it until you make it. I don't necessarily agree with faking it till you make it, but having the confidence to know that you can do it is huge. And changing your mindset to know like, okay, I can do this, it's a skill, I'm not going to be good at it, but I know I can do this. It is so freeing actually to start looking at things in that way instead of the self-limiting way. So when you're moving through your business and you're learning so many different skills at once, you feel so uncomfortable, but you kind of get used to feeling that uncomfortableness as you're moving through your business and as you're actually getting better and practicing all these skills that you're not good at. You kind of get used to being in that space, and when you're not in that space, you're like, well, goodness, what am I going to do now? So it really kind of changes how you think about things and how you approach all the things that are going on in your business. And having your mindset ready to be in a growth space is very different. And until you actually start living in that space, it's hard to explain how it is. But you're kind of always living right on the edge of feeling like that little bit of fear, little bit of imposter syndrome, which imposter syndrome is when you feel like there's no way I could do this, because we all go through this. We all, even today, everybody that's out there, and I don't care who you're looking at, if they're living on the edge of their uncomfortable zone, then they're feeling that same way. They're feeling that kind of like, geez, I don't know if I'm not sure about this, because they're fighting their decisive and confidence. But as an entrepreneur, you just do it anyway. And really the only way to gain that confidence is to just do it. So if you start like looking back to where you were on day one, what you can do now without even thinking about it. For me, it would be content. I don't even think about it now. I just do it. The first day that I went out and did that, I had to go for a walk. I was in the park, and I think I was sweating bullets because I was so nervous. It was just one of those so outside of my comfort zone that I struggled to actually get through it. So thanks for joining. Hello. Sorry, I was not watching the comments. So I appreciate you being here. So getting back to this, sorry. And so anyways, being confident and just doing it is so important when you're an entrepreneur, because you're always going to be on that edge of being like, oh goodness, I don't know if I can do it. You always want to make sure that you're always also learning. Learning is huge, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but learning these skills and other things outside of the skills is so important for your growth as a person. And you'll see actually entrepreneurs go through that growth and how they change over time. And some of that comes from actually just getting the confidence of doing these things, and also from looking for information outside, meaning books and all that kind of stuff, which we'll talk about. And it is really hard to come from an employee mindset into an entrepreneur mindset, and having to make so many decisions. Making decisions is probably one of the hardest things you have to get used to doing, because if you start to dwell on a decision, and okay, let's take a decision that a lot of people think is important. like your logo or the colors or whatever. Does anybody even know what my colors are? I mean, the background of this is my color, but it's not important. And we get so hung up on those little things that sometimes it stops you and delays you from actually moving past it, instead of just saying, okay, I'm just picking this color and it's good enough. I personally like this color and it's actually in my logo, but in all honesty, I didn't actually pick the colors in my logo. I asked somebody to design that for me, and those were the colors that they came with, so I stuck with this color. I happen to actually love the color, but it's one of those things that's interesting to me that I didn't even pick it. That somebody gave it to me and I'm like, okay, that's good. And so it becomes that it's not important, and exactly, 100%. Those are the yep, absolutely. Overthinking it is and you can get yourself so stuck in it. And and you're talking about, okay, well, what does the font look like? Okay, nobody cares. Nobody cares about that stuff. You want to like it, of course, but don't get stuck on it. Just make the decision and move on. If you don't know how to make a decision, maybe it's a little bit bigger than the color of your logo. Maybe it's a little bit bigger, like, hi. Maybe it's a little bigger, like you're not quite sure of the software because you're not familiar with it, or you don't know which one is the right one to choose. Seek out some information then. Go to somebody that you know that can help you with that decision, because sometimes just having an extra piece of input in there can really help you. And it could be somebody else in this group. It could be me. It could be a different group. Just find the information out so you can make the decision and move past. When you're looking at all this stuff inside of your business, there's so many things to actually decide on. Don't get hung up on something too long, because it can really, like, before you know it, a week's gone by and you've missed a week of opportunity. So think of time that you're making those decisions as you're losing time doing something else that could be actually really moving your business forward. And you always want to be moving your business forward. So don't get hung up on the little decisions, because, and a lot of times if you'd ask somebody about that, it's probably not important. There is no right way to create your business. It is just your way. So really be mindful of how you're spending your time. And it's better, this is like one of my favorite things, this is not mine, this imperfect action is better than no action, came from my coach, and cannot be more true. Imperfect action is way better than no action, because no action, you're not even actually moving forward. Imperfect action, at least you're moving forward. You might make a mistake and say, okay, I'm not going to do it that way this time, I'm going to do it this way this time. So really pay attention to what you're doing and how you're using your time, because that's important. Accountability. So you are responsible for everything. And this is a very different mindset, because normally you're not. You're not responsible for everything that's happening around you. But being an entrepreneur and the only one in your business, you do everything. Everything good and everything that's bad happens. It's your responsibility. So celebrate the wins, even if they're like really, really small. Like you did something, like got your first piece of content out there, or maybe set up your professional email or something. Celebrate the small stuff, because you have to, and those are important big wins, especially if it was something that was outside of your comfort zone. Those are huge wins. Learn from your mistakes and move on. Remember, nothing, you can't learn anything without making a mistake. So you are going to make mistakes, and just say, well, that was interesting, and I'm going to do it this way now. So just think of it that way, instead of actually, it's kind of like when you create a piece of content and you think it's going to do phenomenal, and it just tanks. The only thing you can do is look at that piece of content and say, it did not resonate with my audience, and I'm not going to do it that way now, I'm going to do it this way instead, because the message is likely important, because you wouldn't have felt it was important, or you wouldn't put it out there if you didn't think it was important. You just need to figure out how to deliver it differently. So think of it as, okay, that was just a learning. I'm not going to do it that way next time. So you are the only option in your business. You're the only one that can make a difference in your own business. So you are everything. Don't forget that, and don't forget about how you're spending your time. It's such an important piece. And I can't, and actually, just from personal experience, I actually got stuck in that, and I want to say it was probably almost a month, I just kind of spun my wheels instead of actually really taking a look at what was stopping me from moving forward. And what was stopping me was my own fear. And so, and I was my own fear, you know, is outside of my comfort zone. So once I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like jump in and just do it, it kind of like, everything kind of like fell away and I just kept going. But for a month I was like stuck spinning my wheels because I didn't have this done, or I didn't have that done, or that wasn't exactly right. And so the imperfect action thing, if you keep thinking about it in that direction, like, okay, imperfect action is better than no action, because if you're doing no action, you're getting nowhere. And which brings us to resilience, because it doesn't happen overnight. This, as if you're doing affiliate marketing, or if you're starting any online business, I know that some of you are not all starting an affiliate marketing business, but some of you are using the skills that go with affiliate marketing. It doesn't matter what the business is, you are going to stumble along the way. You are going to have days that are terrible or weeks that are bad. The Valley of Despair, I did not know about the Valley of Despair, but I ended up there for about a month. But you need to figure out how you're going to deal with that Valley of Despair when you get there. Because if you don't have a plan in action, you end up like me and you're stuck for a month, instead of saying, okay, reset, and I'm going to get back up, and this is where I'm going. So know that it's coming, know that you're going to get stuck there, and when you're in the Valley of Despair, that's when people quit. So know that at some point you're going to end up in the valley, and at some point you're going to have to say, oh, I'm in the valley. Okay, I need to gather myself, and this is what I am going to do now. You just need to show up, even when you don't want to. There's a lot of days like that. I'm not going to say a lot, but there's many days that does happen, and a lot of it is that you're in your own head and you're actually creating all that stuff in your head. It's kind of weird how it happens, but once you get used to recognizing it, I don't even know how to say it. You start to think it, and then you're like, oh, I'm heading in the wrong direction. And you can change your mindset. So you can actually redirect yourself and say, I'm not doing that because I have all these things that I have lined up that I have to get done. So, health. I have to say that in the month that I was stuck, this is one thing that I kind of let go. And the one thing that I stopped doing was I actually stopped moving. I ended up sitting right here in this chair all day long doing my business because I was so focused on it, and I stopped taking care of myself physically, which is a huge part of your mental health. So don't forget to move. Don't forget to feed yourself well, and I mean that mentally and physically, and you gotta love what you do. So feed your mind. Document your journey. I've said this to a couple of people along the way. It is really important to document your journey. And one of the reasons that you do that, not only so that you have like a way to look back at who your audience is, but also that it actually helps you in your mind to know how far you've come. And if you don't document it, you forget. So you forget how much you've accomplished. And if you have some place to go back and look it up, it's amazing how much you've changed since the beginning of your journey, and how much you've learned, and how much you've moved yourself from a space where you started to today. And I know that there's a lot of people in our group that are beginners, but think about how much more you know now than the day that you decided to start this journey. It's amazing when you start thinking back how much information you actually do know, and how far you've come from the beginning. So if you don't write it down, though, you do forget. So document your journey, and put a couple lines in there, even if it's like every other day or once every few days, to say how you're feeling, how you're doing, because it does become such valuable information. Also, read every day. Make sure you're expanding your mind. There's a lot of information out there on personal growth, and especially as an entrepreneur, as you get busier, you do need to figure out how to kind of quiet your mind and kind of be off when you're off and on when you're on. And there's a lot of information out there. I've actually read a lot of the books at this point, and if you don't know a book that might be helpful, reach out. I'm happy to share my reading list with you. You can see actually is probably right behind me. Some of the books that I have that I've read, these are the ones that I actually refer back to, so I keep them in here because every once in a while I do get up and look at them. If you don't like to read, and I know not everybody is a reader, join Audible. I actually usually listen to them and read them. Not at the same time. I'll read while, like if I'm sitting relaxing, but Audible while I'm out doing exercise or whatever, I usually have a book going. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I have some great books that can actually help you, and that can actually help you manage your time too. So if you're having trouble with time management, there's some great ones out there that how to change your daily routine to kind of fit stuff in. So I think that's pretty much all that I had for you. Yep, it is. So this is a pretty quick one. But if you have any questions, I would love to answer any questions that you have. Just turn off my screen. Okay, so does anybody have any questions or anything? And I do want to say that actually on Monday I am going to be out of town, and I'm going to try to get here for Monday. If I have to, I might do it from my phone, but there's a chance that I won't have internet. So I will be actually making an announcement over the weekend if I'm going to make it here or not for 6 o'clock. But if I don't make it here, I will make it up. So don't worry. We'll still have a live. It's whether or not I'll have access to internet. I'm not sure if I'll have access or not. So if you have any questions though in the meantime, feel free to reach out. I'm always available on Messenger. I'm always here for you guys. If you have any questions or need help with something, reach out. If there's a topic that you want me to cover, please let me know. I don't have the training for Monday done yet, so if you have a suggestion, have at it. I will put something together for you. So the topics that I see coming up are probably a sales funnel, probably how to set up an email campaign, which might be different. I'll probably do it in two systems so that you can see how it's done in two different systems. And I think that's the only two that I have left at this point that I was planning on. But if you have any other, please drop me a message. Absolutely. So if you don't have any more questions, then I am going to sign off for the evening. And I hope that you all had a wonderful Thursday. And I will see you all again, hopefully Monday. Fingers crossed Monday. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.